The small boy's sobs cut through the evening air like a knife. Asha Phillips was exhausted, her feet aching from an 8-hour shift at Sullivan's diner, but she couldn't walk past the child huddled against the brick wall of a closed storefront. He couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, his face buried in his knees, his small shoulders shaking. "Hey, sweetie," she said softly, crouching down despite her protesting muscles. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up, tear-streaked face showing fear and exhaustion. He said something in what sounded like Korean, then switched to hesitant English. I'm lost. I'm hungry." Asha's heart clenched. She glanced around the darkening street, but saw no frantic parents searching. Just a lost, scared child who needed help. "Okay, baby. It's okay. Let's get you something to eat and we'll find your family, I promise." She had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change her life forever, that the child clinging to her hand was Nam Yeon-jun, son of one of the most dangerous men in the city, and that right now, Jang Woo-sung was tearing Atlanta apart, looking for him. 12 hours earlier, Asha Phillips had started her day the same way she always did, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her tiny studio apartment, giving herself the same pep talk she'd been repeating for 3 years. "You're doing fine," she told her reflection, her caramel-toned skin still glowing despite minimal sleep, her natural curls pulled back in a practical ponytail. "You've got a job, you've got a roof over your head, and you're making it work." At 28, making it work was about all Asha could claim. The dreams she'd had of culinary school had faded when her mother got sick 5 years ago. The money she'd saved had gone to medical bills, and after her mother passed, Asha had found herself alone in a city that didn't care about orphaned daughters with big dreams and empty bank accounts. But she was a survivor. She'd always been a survivor. Sullivan's diner wasn't glamorous, but Mr. Frank Sullivan was a decent boss, the tips were steady, and the regulars were kind. Asha had built a life, small, simple, but hers. "Girl, you look dead on your feet," Chantel Dixon said when Asha arrived for her shift. Chantel had been her best friend since high school, one of the few constants in Asha's chaotic life. "You pick up that double shift again?" "Rent's due Friday," Asha said simply, tying her apron. "And Mrs. Chen upstairs needs help with her groceries this week. I'm not going to say no to extra hours." Chantel shook her head, affection mixing with exasperation. "You and your bleeding heart. One of these days you're going to need to learn to say no." "One of these days," Asha agreed with a tired smile. "But not today." The shift blurred into the familiar rhythm of orders called, plates delivered, coffee poured, smiles maintained, even when her feet screamed and her back ached. By the time 8 o'clock arrived, Asha was running on fumes and sheer determination. "Get home safe," Mr. Sullivan called as she clocked out. "And Asha, take tomorrow off. You've worked 6 doubles in 2 weeks." "I'm fine, Mr. Sullivan." "That wasn't a request," the older man said firmly, but his eyes were kind. "Rest. The diner will survive one day without you." Asha walked home through streets growing dark, her thoughts already on the leftover pasta waiting in her fridge, and the blissful moment when she could finally take off her shoes. She took her usual route through the commercial district, past the closed shops and the few restaurants still serving dinner. That's when she heard it, a sound that stopped her in her tracks, a child crying. Asha's head turned sharply, her exhaustion forgotten. There, in the shadowed alcove of a shuttered store, a small figure huddled against the brick wall, face buried in his knees. Her heart lurched. She looked around, expecting to see parents nearby, maybe dealing with a tantrum or a tired child. But the street was nearly empty, just a few pedestrians hurrying past without a glance at the crying boy. "Hey, sweetie," Asha said softly, approaching slowly so she wouldn't startle him. She crouched down, ignoring her protesting knees. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up, and Asha's breath caught. He was beautiful, delicate features, large dark eyes swimming with tears, black hair slightly mussed. He was also clearly Korean, and clearly terrified. He said something in rapid Korean, his voice breaking. Then, seeing her confused expression, he switched to heavily accented English. "I'm lost, I don't know where—" Okay, Asha said gently. "It's okay to be scared, baby, but you're safe now. What's your name?" "Yeonjun," the boy whispered. "Nam Yeonjun. I'm Asha. Nice to meet you, Yeonjun." She kept her voice calm, soothing, the way she used to talk to children at her mother's church. "How old are you, sweetheart?" He held up 6 fingers, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. "I ran away, I was mad. But then I got lost, and it got dark, and I'm hungry and I want to go home, but I don't know how." "Shh, it's okay," Asha interrupted gently. She wanted to hug him but held back, aware that he didn't know her. We're going to figure this out. First, let's get you something to eat. When did you last have food? This morning, he admitted. Before I left. Asha's heart clenched. This child had been alone and scared for hours. All right, there's a little Korean restaurant 2 blocks from here that's open late. How about we get you some food and you can tell me your parents' phone number? We'll call them and get you home safe. Sound good? Yeonjun nodded, relief flooding his small face. When Asha stood and offered her hand, he took it without hesitation, his tiny fingers gripping hers tightly. The Korean restaurant was warm and bright, and the elderly woman behind the counter took one look at Yeonjun's tear-stained face and immediately started fussing over him in Korean. Asha ordered him tteokbokki and manduguk, watching as he ate like he was starving. Better? She asked gently when he'd slowed down. He nodded, some color returning to his cheeks. Thank you, Asha-si. The honorific made her smile. You're very polite, Yeonjun. Your parents raised you well. Speaking of which, do you know their phone number? The boy's face crumpled. I only know my house number, but I don't know where the house is from here. Everything looks different in the dark. Asha thought quickly. What about your address, or your school? I don't go to school yet, Yeonjun said quietly. I have tutors at home, and I don't know the address. I just know we live in a big house with gates. A big house with gates. Private tutors. Asha was starting to realize this child came from serious money. What do your parents do for work? Yeonjun's face shuttered slightly, a guardedness that seemed far too adult for a 6-year-old. My daddy has businesses. Lots of businesses. And my mummy. His voice broke. My mummy died last year. Oh, sweetheart, Asha breathed, her hand covering his small one. I'm so sorry. Daddy's always busy now. Yeonjun continued, the words tumbling out as if he'd been holding them in for too long. He works all the time. Mrs. Lim takes care of me, but she's nice, but she's not my mom. And I miss my mom. And I wanted Daddy to pay attention, so I ran away to make him notice, but then I got scared and lost and— Hey, Asha soothed, squeezing his hand. Your daddy is probably looking for you right now. I bet he's really worried. You think so? Yeonjun's eyes were hopeful. I know so, Asha said firmly. Any parent would be terrified if their child went missing. Why don't we go to the police station? They can help find your family. Yeonjun's eyes widened with something like panic. No police. Asha blinked at the vehemence. Sweetheart, the police are there to help. Please, Yeonjun begged, gripping her hand tightly. Not the police. Daddy always says he doesn't like police. Please, Asha-si. Can you help me find my way home? I think I'd remember if I saw the gates. Warning bells rang in Asha's mind, but looking at this scared, exhausted child, she couldn't bring herself to force him into something that clearly terrified him. Okay, she said slowly. No police. But Yeonjun, I need you to think really hard. Is there anything you remember about where you live? Any stores nearby? Parks? The boy's face scrunched in concentration. There's a big park with a fountain. And really tall buildings. Shiny ones. Midtown. Possibly Buckhead. Those were the expensive areas. Asha made a decision that probably wasn't her smartest, but her heart was ruling her head. I'll tell you what. It's getting late and you're tired. How about you come to my apartment for tonight? It's small, but it's safe and warm. Tomorrow morning when it's light, we'll drive around until you recognize something. Okay? Yeonjun looked up at her with complete trust that made Asha's heart ache. Okay, thank you for taking care of me. Of course, baby, she said softly. Come on, let's get you home. What Asha didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that across the city, in a mansion with iron gates and security cameras, Jang Woo-sung was in the middle of the worst hours of his life. His son was missing. Every available man is searching, Cha Dong-hyun reported, his usually calm face tight with stress. We've checked every location within a 5-mile radius. Police scanners show no reports matching Yeonjun's description. Traffic cameras, not good enough. Woo-sung cut him off, his voice dangerously low. He stood at the window of his office, hands clenched behind his back to hide their shaking. My 6-year-old son has been missing for 8 hours. 8 hours, Dong-hyun. We'll find him, Dong-hyun said firmly. Every member of the organization is looking. He can't have gone far. But Woo-sung's mind was spiraling. Yeonjun was small, vulnerable, alone in a city full of dangers, and it was his fault. He'd been too busy, too focused on the merger with the West Coast operations, too distracted by Jin Woo-hyuk's attempts to undermine his authority. He'd barely seen his son in days. And now Yeonjun was gone, and Woo-sung was faced with the terrifying possibility that he might never see his child again, that his last conversation with his son had been a distracted, "Not now, Yeonjun, I'm working," that had sent the boy's face crumpling in hurt. "Sir," Dong-hyun said quietly, "Dr. Go is here. He brought something to help you sleep." "I'm not sleeping until my son is home," Woo-sung said flatly. He'd made many enemies in his life, built an empire on fear and strategy, on calculated risks and ruthless decisions. He'd always known that empire came with a price. He just never thought his son would be the one to pay it. Somewhere in Atlanta, Yeonjun was alone and scared, or worse, captured by rivals who would use him as leverage, who would hurt an innocent child to get to Woo-sung. The thought made him physically ill. "Find him," he ordered Dong-hyun. "I don't care what it takes. Burn the city down if you have to. Find my son." What he didn't know was that at that very moment, his son was safe and warm, falling asleep on Asha Phillips's worn couch, wrapped in her softest blanket, with a full stomach, and a woman who'd shown him more genuine care in 3 hours than he'd felt in months. And when Woo-sung finally found them, nothing would ever be the same again. Asha woke to the sound of soft crying and sat bolt upright, momentarily disoriented. Then she remembered. Yeonjun. She'd given him her bed and taken the couch, but clearly the poor child was having nightmares. She padded to her bedroom and found him sitting up, tears streaming down his face. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Bad dream?" "I dreamed my daddy forgot about me," he whispered, "that he was so busy he forgot I was gone." Asha's heart broke. She made a decision and opened her arms. "Come here." Yeonjun crashed into her embrace, and Asha held him while he cried, rocking slightly and humming the same song her mother used to hum to her. Eventually, his sobs quieted to hiccups, then to steady breathing. "Your daddy hasn't forgotten you," she said softly. "I promise you that. Parents don't forget their children, no matter how busy they are." "My mummy died because she was in Daddy's car," Yeonjun said quietly. "Bad men tried to hurt Daddy, but they hurt Mommy instead. Sometimes I think Daddy looks at me and remembers her, and it hurts him." Asha closed her eyes, pieces clicking into place. A powerful man. Enemies who would attack his car. Fear of police. "Yeonjun, what kind of businesses does your daddy run?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not supposed to talk about it," he finally said. "But Daddy owns lots of things. Buildings and clubs and other things. People are scared of him. But he's not scary to me. He's just sad and busy." Asha's instincts were screaming warnings, but she pushed them aside. Tomorrow she'd get this child home. Whatever his father was involved in, it wasn't Yeonjun's fault. He was just a lonely little boy who missed his mother and wanted his father's attention. "Try to sleep," she said gently. "Would you like me to stay with you?" Yeonjun nodded, and Asha settled beside him on top of the covers. Within minutes, he was asleep again, one small hand curled around her fingers. She should have been afraid, should have been questioning her decision to bring a stranger's child to her home, but looking at his peaceful face, all she felt was a fierce protectiveness. Morning came too quickly. Asha made Yeonjun breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast which he ate with good appetite, and they prepared to drive around looking for landmarks he might recognize. "Asha, see," Yeonjun said as she gathered her keys. "Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me." She crouched to his level, meeting his serious dark eyes. "Because you needed help, baby. And because every child deserves to be safe and cared for. That's what my mama taught me." "She sounds like she was nice," Yeonjun said wistfully. "Like my mommy." "She was the best," Asha agreed. "Just like I bet your mommy was." They were heading out the door when Asha's phone rang. "Chantel." "Girl, where are you?" her friend demanded. "Mr. Sullivan said you're off today, but I wanted to check on you. You never take days off voluntarily." "I'm fine, Chantel, just running some errands." "Errands? What kind of—" Chantel paused. "Asha Phillips, why do you sound weird? What's going on?" Asha sighed. "I'll explain later, I promise. I just need to—" "Is someone there with you?" Chantel's voice sharpened with concern. "Are you in trouble?" No, I'm fine. I'm just helping someone and—" "Helping who?" Asha looked at Yeonjun, who was watching her with curious eyes. "A friend. I'll call you later, Chantel. I promise I'm safe." She hung up before Chantel could interrogate her further. "Come on, sweetheart, let's find your home." They drove through Atlanta's streets as Yeonjun pressed his face to the window, looking for familiar landmarks. Asha took him through Midtown Buckhead, even parts of Brookhaven. anywhere with the big houses with gates he'd described. "There!" Yeonjun suddenly shouted as they turned onto a tree-lined street in Buckhead. "Those gates, I know those gates." Asha's stomach dropped as she saw what he was pointing to. Massive iron gates flanked by stone pillars, a guardhouse visible just inside. Behind them, a mansion that could only be called palatial rose among manicured grounds. This wasn't just wealth, this was serious, serious money. "You live here?" she asked weakly. "Yes." Yeonjun was bouncing in his seat. "That's home. You found it." Asha pulled up to the gate, her heart pounding. A security guard emerged from the guardhouse, his hand moving to something at his waist. A gun, she realized with a jolt. Then he saw Yeonjun and his eyes went wide. He immediately spoke into a radio in rapid Korean, and the gates began swinging open. "Ma'am, please pull through," the guard said, his English accented but clear. His eyes were scanning the car, landing on Asha with undisguised suspicion. "Park in the circular drive. Don't leave the vehicle until instructed." Asha's hands were shaking as she drove through the gates. The driveway curved through landscaped grounds before opening onto a circular drive in front of a house that looked more like a luxury hotel than a home. And standing on the steps, surrounded by what looked like a small army of men in dark suits, was the most intimidating man Asha had ever seen. He was tall, powerfully built, despite a lean frame, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to burn with intensity even from a distance. His black hair was perfectly styled, and he wore a black suit with a crisp white shirt, the top 4 buttons undone in a style that should have looked casual, but instead seemed deliberately commanding. On the side of his neck, she could see the edge of a tattoo, Korean characters in elegant script. This was Yeonjun's father, and every instinct in Asha's body was screaming that she was in way over her head. The man, Jang Woo-sung, though she didn't know his name yet, moved toward the car with controlled speed. He yanked open the back door and Yeonjun tumbled out, throwing himself at his father. "Daddy, Daddy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted—" "Shh!" Woo-sung cut him off, and Asha was shocked to see his hands shaking as he ran them over his son, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did anyone hurt you?" "No, Daddy. Asha took care of me. She gave me food and let me sleep at her house, and she was really nice." Woo-sung's eyes snapped to Asha, who was still sitting frozen in the driver's seat. The intensity of his gaze pinned her in place. "Out," he ordered. "Now." Asha's hands fumbled with the door, and she stepped out on shaking legs. She was immediately surrounded by armed men, and she heard the distinctive sound of guns being cocked. "Wait!" Yeonjun shouted, pushing away from his father. "Don't hurt her, she helped me. I was lost and scared, and she took care of me." Woo-sung raised a hand, and the men lowered their weapons, though they didn't holster them. He studied Asha with eyes that seemed to see straight through her soul. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "And why do you have my son?" Asha found her voice, though it came out shakier than she'd like. "My name is Asha Phillips. I'm a waitress. I found Yeonjun on the street last night, crying and alone. He was lost and hungry, so I fed him and gave him a safe place to sleep. This morning we drove around until he recognized your gates." Woo-sung's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe you just happened to find my son, that this wasn't some elaborate scheme?" "Scheme?" Asha's fear was rapidly being replaced by indignation. "What kind of scheme involves feeding a scared child and making sure he's safe? I was trying to get him home." "Daddy, please," Yeonjun pleaded, grabbing his father's hand. "Asha didn't know who I was. I didn't tell her your name or anything. She was just nice because I needed help. Don't be mad at her." Something in Woo-sung's expression shifted as he looked between his son and this woman who'd appeared out of nowhere. Yeonjun was defending her. His son, who'd been taught from birth to be cautious of strangers, who'd been surrounded by bodyguards and warned constantly about the dangers of his position, was defending this woman. "Cha," he said quietly, and one of the men stepped forward. "Background check now. I want to know everything about her." "Yes, sir." "Wait," Asha protested. "You can't just—" "I can do whatever I want." Woo-sung cut her off, his voice like ice. "My son was missing for 12 hours. He reappears with a woman I've never met, who conveniently found him on the street. You'll forgive me if I'm not immediately trusting." He had a point, Asha realized. From his perspective, this did look suspicious. She took a breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "Fine. Run your background check. You'll find I'm exactly who I say I am. A waitress who works doubles to make rent and couldn't walk past a crying child. Now, if you're done with me, I have to get to work." "You're not going anywhere," Woo-sung said flatly. "Not until I'm satisfied about who you are and what you want." I don't want anything. Asha's temper flared. I just wanted to make sure a lost child got home safe, which I did. So unless you're planning to kidnap me or shoot me, both of which seem like possibilities given the small army you've got here, I'd like to leave. Several of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Apparently, people didn't usually talk to Jiang Wusung that way. Wusung's eyes flashed with something. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. Mrs. Lim, he called, and an older Korean woman hurried out of the house. Take Yeonjun inside, feed him, let doctor go, examine him, then put him to bed. No, Yeonjun protested. I want to stay with Asha. Yeonjun. Wusung's voice was firm, but not unkind. Go with Mrs. Lim. Now. The boy looked between his father and Asha, his eyes filling with tears. You'll stay? He asked Asha. Please, just a little bit. Asha's heart melted despite her fear and anger. I'll stay until your dad says I can go, she promised. I won't leave without saying goodbye, okay? Satisfied, Yeonjun allowed Mrs. Lim to lead him inside, though he kept looking back at Asha until the door closed behind him, leaving Asha alone with Jiang Wusung and his very armed, very intimidating associates. Inside, Wusung ordered, gesturing to the house. We need to talk. I don't think... That wasn't a request, Ms. Phillips. Asha's jaw clenched, but she followed him into the mansion, acutely aware of the guards flanking her. The interior was as opulent as she'd expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 years. Wusung led her to an office that was somehow both luxurious and coldly intimidating. He gestured to a chair across from his massive desk. Sit. I'd rather stand. Sit, he repeated, and something in his tone made her obey. He settled into his own chair, steepling his fingers as he studied her. This close, Asha could see the exhaustion in his face, the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. This was a man who'd spent the night in hell, she realized, a father who'd thought he'd lost his child. Tell me everything, he said. From the moment you saw Yeonjun, every detail. So she did. She recounted finding the boy crying, feeding him, taking him to her apartment when he refused to go to the police, their morning drive to find his home. Wusung listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. He told you about his mother? Wusung asked when she finished. That she died and that... Asha hesitated, then decided on honesty. That she was killed because of you. He said bad men were trying to hurt you. Wusung's expression went very, very cold. I see. What else did my son tell you about me? That you're busy. That you own lots of businesses, that people are scared of you. Asha met his eyes. He also said you're not scary to him, that you're just sad. Something flickered in Wusung's face. Pain, quickly masked. My son talks too much. Your son is lonely and grieving, Asha shot back. He ran away because he wanted your attention. Did you know that? He said he thought if he disappeared, you'd finally notice him. The words hit their mark. Wusung's hands clenched on the desk. You know nothing about my relationship with my son. I know he cried himself to sleep last night, worrying that you'd forgotten about him, Asha said quietly. I know he's 6 years old, and carrying grief that would break most adults. And I know that whatever business you're in, it cost him his mother, and it's costing him his father too. Careful, Ms. Phillips, Wusung warned, his voice dangerously soft. You're in my home, surrounded by my people. Insulting me is unwise. Then shoot me, Asha said, surprising herself with her boldness. But it won't change the truth. That little boy loves you and needs you, and you're so caught up in your empire that you're losing him. For a long moment, Wusung just stared at her. Then unexpectedly he laughed, a short, bitter sound. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Probably foolish, Asha admitted. But I spent 12 hours with your son. I saw how hurt he is, how much he misses you, and I can't just walk away without saying something, even knowing what I am. Wusung's eyes bored into hers. Make no mistake, Miss Phillips. I am not a good man. I've built my empire on fear and blood. People are right to be scared of me. I'm terrified of you, Asha said honestly. But Yeonjun isn't, and maybe that's because he sees something in you that you've forgotten exists. Before Wusung could respond, there was a knock at the door. Cha Dong-hyun entered, tablet in hand. Background check is complete, sir. And? Wusung didn't take his eyes off Asha. She's exactly who she says she is, Dong-hyun reported. Asha Marie Phillips, 28, orphaned 5 years ago, works at Sullivan's Diner in Midtown. No criminal record, no debts beyond normal living expenses, no connections to any rival organizations, known in her building for helping elderly neighbors with groceries and errands. Mr. Sullivan describes her as the most reliable employee I've ever had, and too kind for her own good. Asha felt vindicated despite her fear. Satisfied? Wu Sung leaned back in his chair, reassessing her. Why didn't you take him to the police? He begged me not to. He was terrified of the idea. I figured he had his reasons. Smart reasons, Wu Sung murmured. The police in this city are either in my pocket or in my enemies. Either way, they would have used him as leverage. Asha's blood ran cold. What exactly do you do? Nothing you need to know about, Wu Sung said firmly. He stood, walking around the desk to lean against it, studying her from this new angle. You took care of my son, fed him, sheltered him, made him feel safe. Why? Because he needed help, Asha said simply. What other reason do I need? Something shifted in Wu Sung's expression. He'd spent his entire life in a world where people always wanted something. Power, money, protection, revenge. The idea of someone acting purely out of kindness was almost foreign to him. Sir, Dong-hyun said quietly, Jin Woo-hyuk's people have been sniffing around. They know Yeon-jun was missing. If they find out, they won't. Wu Sung cut him off sharply. He looked at Asha. What you saw and heard here stays confidential. Am I clear? Crystal, Asha said. Can I go now? Daddy? A small voice came from the doorway. Yeon-jun stood there in fresh pajamas, Dr. Go Sung-hyun behind him. Is Asha leaving? Wu Sung's expression softened in a way that transformed his face. Yeon-jun, you should be sleeping. I wanted to say goodbye, the boy said, running to Asha and throwing his arms around her waist. Thank you for taking care of me. Asha hugged him back, emotion tightening her throat. You take care of yourself, okay? And maybe talk to your daddy. Tell him how you feel. I bet he'll listen. I will, Yeon-jun promised. He looked up at his father. Daddy, can Asha come back and visit, please? Yeon-jun, Wu Sung's voice was strained. Please, she's nice, and she makes me feel better, and I like her. Asha saw the conflict in Wu Sung's face. He didn't want outsiders in his world, in his son's life, but he also couldn't deny his child anything, especially not after the scare of the past day. We'll see, he finally said, which made Yeon-jun beam. I'll take that as my cue to leave, Asha said gently, extracting herself from Yeon-jun's hug. You be good, sweetheart. She was almost to the door when Wu Sung's voice stopped her. Ms. Phillips, she turned. He was holding out a business card. If you need anything, a job, money, protection, anything, call that number. Asha took the card, seeing only a phone number, no name. I don't need anything. Nevertheless, Wu Sung said, you protected my son when he was vulnerable. I don't forget debts. It wasn't a debt, Asha said firmly. It was just being human. She left before he could respond, Dong-hyun escorting her to her car. As she drove through the gates, she caught one last glimpse of Wu Sung standing in the doorway, Yeon-jun in his arms, both of them watching her go. She should have been relieved to escape, should have been planning to forget this entire surreal experience. Instead, she couldn't stop thinking about a lonely little boy and his father who'd forgotten how to show love, and she definitely shouldn't have been thinking about the way Jang Wu Sung's intense gaze had made her heart race, or the brief glimpse of humanity she'd seen beneath his cold exterior. This was trouble. She knew it was trouble. She should stay far, far away. But as she looked at the business card on her passenger seat, something told her this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Asha tried to go back to her normal life. She really did. She returned to her shifts at Sullivan's diner, deflected Chantel's increasingly suspicious questions with vague answers, and tried not to think about Yeon-jun or his intimidating father. It lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, a black luxury car pulled up outside the diner during her shift. Cha Dong-hyun emerged, looking distinctly out of place in his expensive suit among the diner's working-class clientele. Asha's heart jumped into her throat as he approached her table. Ms. Phillips, Mr. Jang requests your presence. Every head in the diner turned toward them. Mr. Sullivan looked concerned. Chantel looked shocked, and Asha felt her face heat with embarrassment. I'm working, she said quietly. Mr. Jang is not a patient man, Dong-hyun replied. It's regarding his son. Asha's concern spiked. Is Yeon-jun okay? He's fine, physically, but he's been difficult. Refusing to eat properly, having nightmares, he keeps asking for you. Guilt and worry warred in Asha's chest. She'd known leaving would be hard on the boy, but she'd thought it was for the best. Getting involved with Jang Woo-sung's world could only end badly for someone like her, but the image of Yeonjun scared and not eating broke her heart. "Let me finish my shift. Now, Miss Phillips." Asha looked at Mr. Sullivan, who nodded reluctantly. "Go, but be safe. And Asha? If you need help, you call me." The drive to the mansion was silent, Dong Hyun offering no information despite Asha's questions. When they arrived, she was led not to Woo-sung's office, but to a bright, cheerful room filled with toys and books, clearly Yeonjun's playroom. The boy was sitting on the floor, listlessly pushing a toy car back and forth. When he saw Asha, his face lit up like the sun. "Asha!" He ran to her, and she caught him in a hug. "You came back." "Of course I did," she said, kneeling to his level. "I heard you weren't feeling well. I missed you," Yeonjun said simply. "Mrs. Lim is nice, but she's not you. Will you stay? For a little while." Asha looked up to find Woo-sung standing in the doorway, watching them with an unreadable expression. He was dressed more casually today, black pants and a black button-up shirt with those same 4 buttons undone, revealing the edge of his tattoo and the toned chest beneath. She forced herself to look away. "I can stay for a bit." What followed was one of the strangest afternoons of Asha's life. She played with Yeonjun, reading him stories and helping him build elaborate block towers, while Woo-sung worked at a desk in the corner, occasionally looking up from his laptop to watch them. The domesticity of it was surreal. Here she was in the home of a man who was clearly involved in organized crime, playing with his son, while he conducted probably illegal business just feet away. "Asha, see, can you teach me to cook?" Yeonjun asked suddenly. "You said your mama taught you. I want to learn too." "Oh, sweetheart, I don't think—" "The kitchen is fully equipped," Woo-sung said, making them both turn. "Mrs. Lim won't mind, if you're willing." There was something in his eyes, a plea, almost. He was trying, Asha realized, trying to give his son something that made him happy, even if it meant allowing a stranger deeper into their lives. "Okay," she found herself agreeing. "Let's make cookies." Mrs. Lim was indeed accommodating, though she watched Asha with undisguised curiosity. Yeonjun was delighted, carefully measuring flour while Asha guided his hands, laughing when he got it on his nose. Woo-sung appeared in the kitchen doorway, and Asha was struck by the longing in his expression as he watched his son. When was the last time he'd seen Yeonjun this happy? "You should join us," Asha said impulsively. "I don't cook," Woo-sung said stiffly. "Then learn," Asha challenged. "Your son would love it." "Daddy, please," Yeonjun begged. "Please help us." Woo-sung hesitated, clearly torn between his instinct to maintain distance and his desire to make his son happy. Finally, he stepped into the kitchen, and Yeonjun's delighted squeal made Asha smile. Watching Jang Woo-sung, crime lord, feared leader, dangerous man, carefully measuring chocolate chips under his son's excited direction was something Asha would never forget. He was terrible at it, too precise and controlled, and when flour exploded from the mixer because he'd set it too high, both Asha and Yeonjun dissolved into laughter. For just a moment, Woo-sung looked annoyed. Then, incredibly, he smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Asha's breath caught. He was devastatingly handsome when he smiled. Their eyes met across the kitchen, and something passed between them. Recognition, attraction, danger. Woo-sung's smile faded, replaced by that intense look that made Asha's pulse race. "Daddy, you're doing it wrong," Yeonjun giggled, breaking the moment. "Like this." The cookies were lopsided and slightly burnt, but Yeonjun declared them the best cookies ever made. As they ate them in the kitchen, Asha felt an ache in her chest. This simple moment of warmth and laughter, this was what Yeonjun needed, what he'd been missing. "Thank you," Woo-sung said quietly when Yeonjun ran off to show Mrs. Lim his favorite cookie. "For coming, for this. He's a good kid," Asha said. "He deserves to be happy." "He does," Woo-sung agreed. His hand moved as if to touch her, then stopped, falling back to his side. "You're good with him. Natural." "I always wanted kids," Asha admitted. "Someday, when I can afford to give them a good life." "What kind of life do you want?" The question was oddly intimate, Woo-sung's dark eyes searching hers. "Simple," Asha said. "Safe, honest. Everything this—" she gestured around, "isn't." "Fair," Woo-sung said, but there was something like regret in his voice. "You should know Jin Woo-hyuk has been making moves, asking questions. If he finds out about you—" "I'm nobody," Asha interrupted. "Why would he care about me?" "Because my son cares about you," Woo-sung said bluntly, "which means your leverage, a vulnerability. In my world, Miss Phillips, that makes you a target." Fear trickled down Asha's spine. Are you telling me I'm in danger because I was kind to a child? I'm telling you that kindness in my world has consequences, Wusung said. I can offer you protection. Guards, a secure apartment, money. I don't want your money or your protection, Asha said firmly. I just want to live my life. Then you should walk away now, Wusung said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Stop coming here, stop seeing Yeonjun, it would be safer for everyone. Is that what you want? Asha challenged. To tell your son that the one person who's made him smile in months can't see him anymore because of your enemies? Wusung's jaw clenched. What I want is irrelevant. What's safe is what matters. Daddy, Asha, Yeonjun called from the other room. Come see what I drew. They stared at each other, the weight of impossible choices hanging between them. One more visit, Wusung finally said. Then you need to stay away, for your own safety. But they both knew it was already too late for that. As Asha left that evening, she found an envelope in her car. Inside was more money than she made in 3 months, and a note in precise handwriting. For the food and your time. Non-negotiable. JW. She should have returned it, should have refused. Instead, she stared at the note, tracing the initials with her finger, and wondered how her simple life had become so complicated so quickly, and why, despite every logical reason to run, she was already looking forward to the next time she'd see Yeonjun, and maybe, though she barely admitted it to herself, his father too. 3 weeks. That's how long Asha managed to stay away. 3 weeks of Yeonjun's pleading phone calls. Wusung had apparently given him a phone just to call her, of Dong-hyun appearing at the diner with urgent requests that always seemed to involve checking on the boy, of mysterious deposits in her bank account that she couldn't return because they came from untraceable sources. 3 weeks of lying to Chantel, of jumping at shadows, of finding fresh flowers on her doorstep with no note, but knowing exactly who sent them. 3 weeks of trying not to think about dark eyes and rare smiles, and the way her heart raced when Jang Woo-sung looked at her like she was something precious and dangerous all at once. It ended on a Tuesday night, when she got home from work to find Dong-hyun waiting at her door, his usually composed face tight with urgency. Miss Phillips, you need to come with me now. Is it Yeonjun? Is he hurt? He's safe. But there's been an incident. Mr. Jang requests your presence. 20 minutes later, Asha was back at the mansion, being led to Woo-sung's office. He stood with his back to the door, staring out the window, and she could see the tension in his shoulders. What happened? She asked. He turned and she gasped. His knuckles were split and bleeding, his shirt had blood on it, and there was a coldness in his eyes that terrified her. Jin Woo-hyuk sent a message, he said flatly. He knows about you, knows that Yeonjun cares about you. He's threatened to use that against me. Asha's blood ran cold. What kind of message? The kind delivered with bodies, Woo-sung said, and his voice was devoid of emotion. 2 of my men. He left a note saying next time it would be someone I actually cared about, and you think he means me. I know he means you, Woo-sung corrected, or Yeonjun. He's testing me, seeing how far he can push before I break. Then I'll disappear, Asha said immediately. I'll leave Atlanta, go somewhere far away. Too late, Woo-sung cut her off. He's already had you followed. He knows where you live, where you work, who your friends are. Running would only confirm your importance. Then what do we do? We? Woo-sung's eyes sharpened. There is no we, Miss Phillips. This is my world, my war. You're an innocent bystander who got caught in crossfire. An innocent bystander your son loves, Asha shot back. An innocent bystander who's apparently now a target because I fed a hungry child. So yes, we. What do we do? For a long moment, Woo-sung just stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he crossed the room and cupped her face in his hands. Those same hands that were bruised from violence now touching her with infinite gentleness. You should be running, he said quietly. You should be terrified of me, of this situation. Any sane person would be. I am terrified, Asha whispered. But I'm not running. Not if it means Yeonjun gets hurt. Not if it means you face this alone. Why? The question was raw, vulnerable. Why do you care? Because Yeonjun needs you, Asha said. And maybe you need someone too. Someone who sees the man, not the monster. I am a monster, Woo-sung said harshly. I've killed people, Asha. Destroyed lives. Built an empire on fear and blood. You've seen the edges of my world, but the depths would horrify you. Then show me, Asha challenged. Show me the worst of you. Let me decide what I can handle. Something broke in Woo-sung's expression. He kissed her, fierce and desperate, a drowning man reaching for air. Asha gasped against his mouth but didn't pull away, her hands fisting in his shirt as she kissed him back. It was electric, terrifying, wrong in every way, and yet feeling more right than anything in Asha's life. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Woo-sung rested his forehead against hers. "This is insane." "Completely," Asha agreed. "But what do we do about Jin Woo-hyuk?" "We end this," Woo-sung said, and there was steel in his voice. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "I don't know," Asha said honestly, "but I'm willing to try." What followed was a week of careful planning. Woo-sung explained his strategy. Use Asha's apparent vulnerability to draw Jin Woo-hyuk out, then eliminate the threat permanently. It was dangerous, terrifying, and required Asha to trust a man she barely knew with her life. But every time she wavered, she thought of Yeonjun, of the little boy who'd cried in her arms, who called her twice a day just to tell her about his day, who'd started calling her Asha Yoma when he thought no one was listening. She couldn't let Jin Woo-hyuk hurt him, even if it meant risking everything. The night of the operation, Asha was dressed in an elegant dress, Woo-sung's insistence making her look like she belonged at his side. She was to attend a business dinner with him, a public declaration that she mattered to him. Bait for the trap. "You don't have to do this," Woo-sung said for the 100th time as they prepared to leave. "I can find another way." "No," Asha said firmly. "We end this tonight. For Yeonjun." "For Yeonjun," Woo-sung echoed. Then quieter, "And for you, you've become—" He stopped, shook his head. "Important. To both of us." The dinner was at an exclusive restaurant, surrounded by Woo-sung's people and watched by Jin Woo-hyuk's. Asha could feel eyes on her all night, assessing, calculating. She forced herself to smile, to play her part, to look like a woman falling for a dangerous man. It wasn't entirely acting, she realized with a jolt. The attack came as they left the restaurant. 3 cars blocked the street, armed men emerging. But Woo-sung had anticipated this. His own people were already in position. "Stay behind me," Woo-sung ordered, pushing Asha behind his body. "Dong-hyun, get her to the car." But before they could move, a single figure stepped forward from the attackers. Jin Woo-hyuk himself, older than Woo-sung, with cruel eyes and a smile that made Asha's skin crawl. "Jang Woo-sung," he called. "Nice to finally meet your weakness. She's prettier than I expected." "Touch her and you die," Woo-sung said coldly. "So protective," Jin Woo-hyuk mocked. "Tell me, does she know what you really are? Does she know about the people you've killed, the families you've destroyed?" "She knows enough," Woo-sung said, "and unlike you, she sees beyond the blood to the man beneath." "How touching," Jin Woo-hyuk sneered. "But it doesn't matter. You've gone soft, Woo-sung. This woman, your son, they're vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities get exploited. Then exploit them," Woo-sung challenged. "Right here, right now, you came to make a move. Make it." What happened next happened fast. Jin Woo-hyuk reached for a gun. Woo-sung moved like lightning, his own weapon already drawn. Shots rang out and Asha screamed as Dong-hyun shoved her to the ground, his body covering hers. When the shooting stopped, Jin Woo-hyuk was on the ground, bleeding from his shoulder. Woo-sung stood over him, gun trained on his head. "You made a mistake tonight," Woo-sung said, his voice like death itself. "You threatened my family. There's no coming back from that." "You won't kill me," Jin Woo-hyuk gasped. "Too many witnesses. Too much heat." "You're right," Woo-sung said. "I won't kill you, but I will make sure you never threaten anyone I love again." He made a gesture, and his men surrounded Jin Woo-hyuk. "Take him," Woo-sung ordered. "Let the elders deal with him. He's violated every code we have." As Jin Woo-hyuk was dragged away, promising vengeance, Woo-sung turned to Asha. She was shaking, Dong-hyun helping her to her feet. "Are you hurt?" Woo-sung asked, running his hands over her frantically. "Did anyone touch you?" "I'm fine," Asha managed. "Is it over?" "It's over," Woo-sung confirmed. He pulled her into his arms and Asha felt him trembling. "I almost lost you. When those guns went off, I thought—" "I'm okay," Asha whispered. "We're okay." Later, back at the mansion, Asha sat with Yeonjun while he slept, stroking his hair. Woo-sung appeared in the doorway, freshly showered, the violence of the evening washed away, but not forgotten. "You should stay here tonight," he said quietly. "It's safer, until we're sure all of Jin's people are accounted for." "Okay," Asha agreed. She followed him out, leaving Yeonjun sleeping peacefully. In the hallway, Woo-sung stopped, turning to face her. "I need to tell you something. About Yeonjun's mother. About how she died. You don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Woo-sung interrupted. If you're going to be in our lives, you deserve to know the truth." So he told her about Go Seo-yoon, his wife, who'd known what he was and married him anyway, who'd been killed in an ambush meant for him, caught in crossfire she should never have been near, about the guilt that ate at him every day, the knowledge that loving him had cost her everything. I swore I'd never put anyone else at risk, he finished, that I'd keep Yeonjun safe by keeping him isolated, by never allowing myself to care about anyone else. But then you appeared, and you made my son smile again, and you looked at me like I was a man, not a monster, and I— You what? Asha whispered. I fell for you, Woo-sung admitted, despite every reason not to, despite knowing it puts you in danger. I fell for your kindness, your strength, the way you challenged me and cared for my son and refused to be intimidated by my world. And tonight, facing the possibility of losing you, I realized I can't let you go. Woo-sung, Asha breathed. But I will, he continued. If you want to leave, I'll let you go. I'll make sure you're protected, set up somewhere safe, give you enough money to start over, because I love you too much to trap you in this life. Asha's eyes filled with tears. You love me? Terrifyingly much, Woo-sung admitted. For someone I've only known a month, you've become essential. You and Yeonjun, you're my whole world. And that terrifies me because I know what this world does to the people I love. Asha stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart. What if I don't want to leave? What if I want to stay, even knowing the risks? Then you're crazy, Woo-sung said, but his arms were wrapping around her. Absolutely insane. Maybe, Asha agreed. But I love him too, Yeonjun. He's stolen my heart completely, and you— She looked up at him. You've shown me that people can be more than their worst choices, that redemption is possible, that love can exist even in dark places. I don't deserve you, Woo-sung whispered. Probably not, Asha said, but you've got me anyway. He kissed her then, slow and deep, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, Asha knew her life had changed irrevocably. She was in love with a crime lord. She'd become a mother figure to his son. She'd stepped into a dangerous world that could destroy her, and somehow, impossibly, it felt like exactly where she was meant to be. 18 months later, Asha woke to the smell of burning and sat up in alarm. Beside her, Woo-sung's side of the bed was empty, unusual for a Saturday morning when he usually slept in, pulling her close and refusing to let her leave until Yeonjun inevitably crashed into their room demanding breakfast. Their room, their bed. The thought still made her smile. She pulled on Woo-sung's discarded shirt, her favorite thing to sleep in, and padded downstairs. The sight that greeted her in the kitchen made her heart squeeze with love. Woo-sung stood at the stove, flower in his hair, wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Cook" that Yeonjun had picked out, and Yeonjun himself, now 7.5, stood on a step stool beside him, both of them intently focused on what appeared to be pancakes, very burnt pancakes. We wanted to surprise you, Yeonjun announced when he saw her, his face breaking into that smile that always reminded her of why she'd fallen into this life in the first place. For your birthday. My birthday's not until next week, Asha laughed. We're practicing, Woo-sung said dryly, scraping a particularly charred pancake into the trash. Apparently I'm still terrible at cooking. You're getting better, Asha assured him, coming to wrap her arms around his waist from behind. She pressed a kiss to his shoulder blade, right over where she knew the full dragon tattoo spread across his back, a recent addition with Yeonjun's birth date and her name hidden in the design in subtle Korean characters. Yeoma, can you help? Yeonjun asked, and Asha's heart still fluttered every time he called her that. They'd married 6 months ago, a small ceremony with just close friends and family, Yeonjun serving as best man and ring-bearer, his proud grin outshining everything. Of course, baby, she said, moving to the stove. Together, the three of them made a fresh batch of pancakes, edible ones this time, while Woo-sung told them about the new community center he was opening in the neighborhood where he grew up. That was the other change. Slowly, carefully, Woo-sung had been transitioning his empire toward legitimacy. It wasn't complete, probably would never be completely clean, but he'd shut down the more violent operations, focused on legal businesses, and started using his money and influence for good. For you, he'd told Asha one night, and for him. So Yeonjun can be proud of his father. So I can be the man you see when you look at me. After Jin Woo-hyuk had been expelled from the organization for violating codes, other rivals had backed down. Woo-sung's reputation, combined with his strategic alliances, had brought a fragile peace. They still had security, probably always would, but Asha no longer jumped at shadows. Daddy, "Can we go to the park after breakfast?" Yeonjun asked, "and maybe stop at Auntie Chantel's store?" "If your Yama wants to," Woo-sung said, his hand finding Asha's. Chantel had been skeptical at first when Asha had finally explained everything. But seeing how happy Asha was, how good Woo-sung was with Yeonjun, how the dangerous crime lord became soft and gentle around his family, she'd eventually accepted it. Now she was Yeonjun's favorite aunt, and the only person outside the organization who could make Woo-sung laugh with her blunt observations. "We can go to the park," Asha agreed. She looked at her family, her husband, her son in all but biology, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Her life hadn't turned out anything like she'd planned. She'd gone from struggling waitress to wife of one of Atlanta's most powerful men, from lonely orphan to mother to the sweetest boy she'd ever known, from someone who lived in fear of not making rent to someone who could help others, who ran a charity foundation in her mother's name, who'd found purpose and love in the most unexpected place. "Thank you," Woo-sung said softly, pulling her aside while Yeonjun set the table. "For what?" "For giving food to a crying child," he said, "for not running when you should have, for loving us when we didn't deserve it, for saving us both." "You saved me too," Asha whispered. "You gave me a family, a home, a purpose, love I never thought I'd find." "I love you," Woo-sung said, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "So much it sometimes terrifies me." "I love you too," Asha said. "Both of you, my boys." "Guys," Yeonjun called. "The pancakes are getting cold." They joined him at the table, the one Woo-sung had commissioned specifically for their family, made from reclaimed wood from the church where Asha's mother used to take her. A connection between her past and her present, between the woman who'd taught her kindness and the family she'd built with that kindness. As they ate breakfast together, Yeonjun chattering about his upcoming science project, Woo-sung's hand warm in hers, Asha thought about that night 18 months ago, when she'd found a lost, crying child and made a choice to help. She'd had no idea that choice would change her entire life, that the hungry child would lead her to a man who'd become her whole world, that showing simple compassion would result in a love story she never could have imagined. But looking at her family now, safe, happy, together, she wouldn't change a single moment. Sometimes the most dangerous choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Sometimes love finds you in the darkest places, and sometimes saving someone else is exactly how you save yourself. "What are you thinking about?" Woo-sung asked softly, squeezing her hand. "Just that I gave food to a crying child," Asha said, smiling. "And he gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Woo-sung corrected. He pulled her close, Yeonjun giggling as he joined their hug, and Asha knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Home.